Hello and welcome everyone to part 1 of my video series about Image 3 from the book The Secret by Byron Preiss. A lot of people believe Image 3 is best associated with Roanoke Island, which is of course part of the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So you might sometimes hear it called the Roanoke image. Whatever your opinion on that, I hope this and my other videos will help you in your quest to solve this puzzle. So let's get into it. This is Image 3. Of all the images in this book, Image 3 has always been my personal favorite. There's so much going on in this painting. There are tons of tiny details, from small cracks in the wall to barely perceptible features, and there are some really striking oddities, like the skirt on the knight and the base where the legs should be. There's a sense that something else is going on here, a conflict, like a battle between the natives and the English settlers, or a fight against gravity itself. So this is not my first attempt at trying to explain this image. You can see here my first attempt, which I posted on Facebook, but I found a simple image with labels wasn't going to do this any justice. So here I am to walk you through what I think are the best explanations in the picture. I wanted to share explanations of things that I've seen offered up by others, including my own observations, even if I disagree with the observations of other people. So I created this simple scale as a measure of my own confidence in my interpretations. A slam dunk at one end indicating high confidence, and pure speculation at the other end indicating, well, pure speculation. Fair warning, my observations and choices for the best associations in the image in this video are based on a key assumption, and that's context. A very reasonable person could find just about anything they want in these pictures. In order to discern a match, there has to be context. A crack in the wall might just look just like a coastline somewhere in Alaska, but if nothing else in the image or verses points to Alaska, I think you have to move on. I'm specifically looking for patterns. Okay, so let's start our analysis with, I think, the most fundamental question, which is, what in the world is this figure in the painting? I've heard 6 explanations. First, we can look at the name of the painting, which is called the Medieval Scarecrow, one of the few paintings that actually has a name. Second, we can see the knight's arms and the base of the statue as a possible reference to a Christian cross and altar. We can also see the outstretched arms with supports resembling the wing of an airplane. We can also envision the T-looking shape of a ship's mast, like the one that figures prominently into the Lost Colony play. Some have also speculated that we see a tree, like the infamous crow tree from the Roanoke colonists. And so my vote is that it's an artistic combination of all of these, or several of them at least, in particular the airplane and the cross. I believe the Wright brothers' first flight and the arrival of the English in the New World are the two most important motifs in this image. Okay, so there are so many different important details in this painting, it's going to be impossible to cover this without breaking it up. So we're going to break up this image and focus on different sections. First, we're going to focus on the head of the knight. In order to explain the characteristics of the head, we need to look at the geography around Roanoke. Pictured here in a red box is the Outer Banks of North Carolina. The Outer Banks are a tiny strip of land that runs along the North Carolina coastline. If you've never been here, you absolutely should visit. It's amazing. At the top of the helmet of the knight are 2 horns. I believe these 2 horns refer to a town on the Outer Banks called Kill Devil Hills. It's the most populous area on the entire Outer Banks, and therefore one of the most obvious locations to highlight if you're trying to communicate a clue. This is so obvious to me that I'm rating this one as a slam dunk. Now, moving down the helmet, the next detail is the visor or eye slit, or whatever you want to call it. The shape is very unique and not typical for a medieval helmet. So now, for those of you who are unaware, Kitty Hawk, where the Wright brothers conducted their first flight, is also located on the Outer Banks, as is the Wright brothers Memorial. The memorial is just south of Kill Devil Hills. Given this proximity to where that first flight occurred, I think the eye slit is in the clear shape of a sweep-back wing. Now, for me, I think of it as if I'm looking down on an airplane from overhead. In fact, if you combine the eye slit with the ridge of the nose and the crease up the top center of the helmet, you can kind of make out the entire airplane, fuselage and all. But whether you buy that or not, I do think the eye slit is a slam dunk for a wing. Moving down the helmet, we arrive at the nose. The nose of the knight is large and flared. It's clearly animal, at least to me. Many different animals have been thrown out over the years as candidates for explaining the nose, but keeping in mind the need for context to explain the image, there's one animal that fits very well, and that's a horse. To understand the horse analogy, we need to go back to our geography. On the Outer Banks is a place called Corolla. Corolla is well known for its wild horses. They even offer guided wild horse tours. There's more information you can read here, so given this connection, I think the horse is the best explanation. Another slam dunk. What about the high ridge line along the top center of the helmet? If you don't buy the airplane analogy, another idea is that it's simply a reflection of history. On the right here, you can see a fuzzy picture of a helmet that was previously on display at Fort Raleigh, which is on Roanoke Island. One of the most prominent features of this helmet is a ridge across the top center. I think this might explain it. Below the nose is the grille of the helmet, with two very interesting and different grille patterns on each side. The pattern on the left is a series of dots with a single dot in the middle. I believe this pattern is intended to represent the natives who lived on Roanoke at the time the English arrived. I got this from looking through John White's amazing watercolor paintings. John White was the governor of the Roanoke colony and was also an adept painter. His drawing of Indians dancing around circle posts seems like a really good fit for this dot pattern. The other side of the grille is a cross shaped with dots in each quadrant. The shape seems like a reasonable match to the Cross of St. George, which is the basis of the flag of England. It would make sense for me that Palencar would paint one side of the grille to represent the natives and the other side to point to the colonists, but this is ultimately just an educated guess as well. Okay, the next section of the image that we will cover in this video is the left arm. Lots going on here. Perhaps the oddest characteristic of the arm is the spiked ball. Clearly, this is not something that you would typically see on a knight of armor, so we need to figure out why Palencar put it there. The first and most common explanation is that it's a reference to the Wright Brothers Memorial, which is in the shape of a morning star. This is a perfectly logical and educated guess, but personally, I'm not very confident in this interpretation. The resemblance is just not quite as strong as I'd like it to be. The spiked ball in the image is a sphere, not just a circle, and has a lot more spikes. I think a better interpretation is a mace, and here's a picture of one. It looks a lot more similar to the painting, but what's the context? I have an idea. As it happens, there is an historical connection to Roanoke by a man named Samuel Mace. In 1602, Sir Walter Raleigh charged Mr. Mace with searching for the lost colonists of Roanoke. I think this is a far better interpretation. If this is not the explanation, if it's just a coincidence, then that is a crazy coincidence. Below the mace on the arm is a hook hanging down. There is a key ring hanging from that hook, but we're going to focus for now just on the hook. This is one of the most speculated details of the painting. There's a lot of theories here. In the Elizabethan Gardens, which is a beautiful garden situated right next to Fort Raleigh on Roanoke Island, there is a gate on the beach called the Water Gate. One theory about this hook is that it resembles the latch on this gate. The above in this picture is the best picture I could find of this latch, but sadly it's a bit too fuzzy to really tell whether it's a match, so this one is just pure speculation. Another often cited theory for this hook is a scythe, like the one a Grim Reaper would wield, or more likely one which a colonist might possess. Interestingly, there is a sundial at the Elizabethan Gardens, and on that sundial there is a Grim Reaper wielding a scythe. Is it a match? I don't know. This one seems to me to be pure speculation. Another theory is that the hook represents the area around Kitty Hawk and Kill Devil Hills on the Outer Banks. The area bordered by Kitty Hawk Bay looks similar to the top side of the hook in the picture. While it's similar, I don't know. This one, it's not enough of a match for me to make it a slam dunk. So this one also is just pure speculation. Next, we're going to look at the fingers on the left arm. This one is another somewhat controversial detail. Many believe that the fingers are supposed to be pointing at something of interest, which it very well may be. What are they pointing at? I don't know, but theories abound. One theory I'm partial to is that the fingers are intended to map to the coastline around Roanoke. And in fact, some people have extended that to the entire arm, that the entire arm is mapping to the geographic coastline around Roanoke. In this engraving here on the screen, which was based on the maps made by John White, you can see Roanoke circled in red. If you flip this map, you can see how the bays and the tributaries clearly resemble fingers. It's not a perfect match to the image, so this is speculative, but when I saw this engraving, I couldn't help but see the similarity. Since we're looking at the fingers, now would be a good time to just simply mention the fact that they fall outside the margins of the painting, which is odd. Many have speculated that this is to signify the Outer Banks. So they're outside the margin, therefore the Outer Banks. So very crafty of Mr. Palancar, if that's true. I think it's a great guess. The last detail we will cover in this video is the armor around the arm, the coils or the folds of armor under the shoulder. The best attribution I've seen for these folds is a cannon. The one in this picture was featured in the Visitors Center of Fort Raleigh many years ago. Here is a still frame from a video that is at least 12 years old, also from Fort Raleigh, that shows the cannon from behind in the museum. So the resemblance is close, and maybe not close enough for a slam dunk, but I think it's a great educated guess. Okay, so thanks everyone for watching part 1 of this video. That's it. I hope you found it useful. Please like this video and follow me. That's going to give me a bunch of much needed motivation to finish the other parts. Have a great day. Thanks.